Hello and welcome to this most notorious edition of UK Crime Caught on Camera. Coming up on this special show, Cops versus Crooks.
What do you get if you combine stacks of cash, a cocaine drug dealer and a chainsaw? No, not Al Pacino and Scarface. What you get, in this case, actually, is a chainsaw-wielding police officer breaking into a home in Essex, England. The officers that work here are after 47-year-old Zokol Zaimi. But in order to get him, they need to break down one of the toughest doors in the UK. The door has 3 bolts on each of its 3 locks, but as police put it, the chainsaw is doing a cracking job. Inside, officers found a huge stack of €50 notes, massive quantities of plastic-wrapped cocaine-labelled Jaguar, and top. Zaimi's chat logs showed he was involved in the large-scale purchase and sale of cocaine between March and June 2020. He was also seen to be discussing the collection of more than £400,000 in cash. He was sentenced to 9 years and 4 months in prison in December 2022. Next, we're in Birmingham, where a dramatic combination of body and dashcam footage shows the moment unarmed officers chase a teenage gunman near a school. John Yale Barrett was wrestled to the ground and found with a loaded revolver after cops arrested him in February 2021. The officers, who were in an unmarked car, activated their blue lights after running checks on police systems, and the driver pulled over to stop. But Barrett bolted from the car and officers gave chase on foot and tackled him to the ground on James Turner Street. They spotted the handle of an antique revolver poking from his waistband, and when asked is it loaded, 19-year-old Barrett replied yes. It was later found to be a Webley Mark 6 revolver loaded with a .44 Smith & Wesson cartridge. Barrett, now 20, of Ladywood, Birmingham, went on to admit to possessing a firearm and ammunition. He was jailed for 5 years at Birmingham Crown Court in December last year. Now we come to Birmingham, where National Crime Agency officers are arresting men at gunpoint. They were found to be in possession of an array of weapons, including a loaded firearm. Officers recovered a handgun, ammunition, knives and sledgehammer from the gang. The gun was loaded. Carol Brooks, Callum Mia, Richard Davis, Jordan Feeney and Robert Clark were all charged with possession of a prohibited firearm, possession of prohibited ammunition, possession of a prohibited firearm, possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life, and possession of a firearm with intent to cause fear of violence. Clark was also charged with possession of an offensive weapon or bladed article. All 5 men pled guilty at Birmingham Crown Court in December 2022, where a judge jailed the gang for a combined 32 years.
But first, we're in London, where Met Police officer Tony McGovern is seconds away from serious injury. The driver who sped away there is Joseph Ward. The incident took place on July 1st, 2022. Ward was also wanted for impersonating a police officer and demanding money from another driver in June 2022. After a complex manhunt, Met Police officers tracked Ward down and arrested him. Investigators later linked him to 2 other offences, including on the 5th of July 2022 when he was involved in a collision in Crouch Hill, and on the 6th of July 2022 where he failed to stop for police on Goat Lane in Enfield and damaged 2 police cars. Ward, from Royston, Hertfordshire, was sentenced at Wood Green Crown Court on Wednesday 1st of February to 4 years in prison. He had previously pled guilty to 14 offences. Robbers nick $300,000 worth of gold in ram raid heist. This footage shows robbers ram raiding a jeweller's in broad daylight. In total, they made off with $300,000 worth of gold in 70 seconds. The robbery was carried out in front of shoppers in March last year. Those involved are John Gurley, Trevor Leake, Justin Boylan, Arfan Latif and Hassan Sufilka. The video shows them reverse a stolen pickup truck into the store around midday. 3 men burst into the shop. One uses a sledgehammer to smash the glass display cabinets. He then fills his sports bags with loot. They fled the scene with around 5 kilos worth of 22-carat gold jewellery. A 4th man remained in the car, while the 5th acted as crowd control. He did this by waving an axe at witnesses before they fled. The gang then dumped the getaway car in a residential street and switched vehicles, but they were caught by police days later. The 5 were found guilty of conspiracy to rob and possessing an offensive. Drug dealer attacks officer with pava spray. Next, we're in Cambridge in September 2021. This body cam footage shows a drug dealer trying to evade arrest. And to make matters worse, he gets violent with a police officer. The assailant repeatedly punches the police officer. He then incapacitates him with the officer's own pava spray. Before all that, Shaksawan Becker was chased through the streets on foot. In pursuit were officers who suspected he was involved in drug dealing. But after they caught up with him, Becker held one down and punched him. He then took the officer's pava spray and sprayed it in his eyes. It all kicked off when police had stopped a red car which Becker was a passenger in. Becker fled and was chased by another officer.
Police officer, take it up! Stay there!
He can be seen throwing a package away. Here that is again. What Becker threw was later confirmed to be up to £12,300 worth of cocaine. The officer and Becker scuffled, but the officer managed to call for backup by pressing the emergency assistant button on his police radio. Despite the officer using his pava, Becker repeatedly punched the officer in the face. He also attempted to grab hold of his taser, but was unsuccessful. So he grabbed the pava and sprayed it directly in the officer's eyes. Officers came to the downed officer's aid and detained Becker. They also recovered the package he threw away.
Get off it! You're next for assault, please! Roll over now! VB, there's one turn around and get him in the car! He's in a red Audi!
You okay? You okay? Yes, sir.
You're next for assault, please. Do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. You do not mention when questioned, something which later on in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. VB, ambulance, please. PC.
A further package containing up to about £2,500 worth of cocaine was found in the red car. Authorities also found boxes of illegal cigarettes, resulting in the driver's arrest. Becker admitted possession with intent to supply cocaine, assault with intent to resist arrest, possession of an offensive weapon and possession of cannabis. He was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. The driver, Soran Abdullah, was handed a 2-year conditional discharge and must pay £1,000 in costs. He admitted 2 counts of possession of cocaine and acquiring criminal property, namely a large quantity of cigarettes on which duty had not been paid. 16 years for a man who sprayed police with ammonia. A 22-year-old Brixton man has been jailed for 16 years after spraying an officer with ammonia, then threatening him with a gun.
I've been sprayed by something. He's got a firearm.
Police were called to reports of people acting suspiciously shortly after midnight on June 17, 2022, around parked cars on Commonside East in Mitchell. PC Samuel Gord approached a male, later identified as James Boyle. Officer Gord tried to speak to him, asking him to take his hands out of his pockets. But Boyle pulled out a bottle and sprayed the officer in the face with ammonia. The officer was only able to see from one eye, but managed to use his pava spray. This caused Boyle to turn around and flee.
Power deployed, power deployed! I've been sprayed by something.
7, take your last you've been.
Score fire up.
3 south.
PC Gord said in his victim impact statement, "At the time of the incident I was in complete fear for my life. I did not know what the male had sprayed at me. Thoughts of acid, ammonia or any liquid that could have caused me irreversible injuries to my eye, sight or permanent disfigurement to my face overcame me. My thoughts turned to my son at home. Was he going to grow up only knowing me as having a disfigured face? Will he recognise me when I go home?" PC Gord was joined by his colleague PC John Garner. The pair chased Boyle on foot. Boyle then pulled a handgun from his waistband and pointed it at them. He escaped. After some investigation of CCTV, police identified the man as James Boyle. He was located and arrested by officers on Friday, June 24, 2022. Boyle was sentenced to 16 years imprisonment at Kingston Crown Court on Monday, March 13. He earlier pled guilty at the same court on November 11, 2022 to the following offences: administering a poison or noxious substance with intent, possession of a firearm with intent to cause fear of violence, using a firearm with intent, assault, actual bodily harm, possession of a bladed article, knife, possession of a bladed article, axe, having a corrosive substance in a public place.